Third-party and vendor risk management has become one of the defining challenges of modern cybersecurity governance. As organizations expand their reliance on external service providers, cloud platforms, and contractors, the traditional perimeter of control has dissolved. Vendor risk management ensures that these partners meet the same security and compliance standards expected internally, protecting sensitive data and maintaining trust across the business ecosystem. A single weak link, whether a cloud provider, payment processor, or IT consultant, can expose the enterprise to operational disruption, legal liability, and reputational damage. Effective oversight of third-party relationships is therefore not optional. It is essential to sustaining resilience and regulatory compliance. The growing complexity of vendor ecosystems has amplified both opportunity and risk. Outsourcing allows organizations to scale rapidly, leverage specialized expertise, and improve efficiency. Yet, every connection to a third-party environment introduces a new potential entry point for cyber threats. Vendors often hold privileged access to networks, process confidential data, or influence mission-critical operations. The sheer number of interdependent service providers, often spanning multiple continents, has expanded the attack surface far beyond what internal teams alone can monitor. In this interconnected landscape, a coordinated approach to vendor oversight is the only defense against cascading supply chain failures. Risks within vendor relationships fall into several categories. Operational risk arises when third parties fail to deliver services reliably, potentially interrupting business continuity. Legal and compliance risk occurs when vendors violate data protection laws or contractual obligations, exposing the organization to fines and litigation. Reputational risk surfaces when a supplier's breach damages customer confidence or brand integrity. Financial risk may stem from contract disputes, penalties, or lost revenue following service disruptions. Understanding these categories allows CISOs to design layered defense strategies, combining policy, technical monitoring, and governance to manage risk at both strategic and operational levels. Due diligence is the first safeguard in any vendor risk management lifecycle. Before signing a contract, organizations must evaluate the vendor's security maturity, compliance record, and operational resilience. This process often includes questionnaires, documentation reviews, and validation of certifications such as ISO 27001, SOC 2, or PCI DSS. Background checks on incident history, litigation, or regulatory findings provide further insight into potential red flags. Due diligence is not a mere formality. It establishes the foundation for informed trust. By thoroughly assessing vendors at the outset, organizations can prevent costly surprises and set clear expectations for future performance. Contractual safeguards transform due diligence findings into enforceable commitments. Security clauses within master service agreements should mandate adherence to defined standards, require timely notification of incidents, and specify data handling procedures. Data protection clauses formalize privacy and confidentiality obligations, while right-to-audit provisions allow verification of compliance throughout the contract's lifespan. Service level agreements, or SLAs, must set measurable targets for uptime, response time, and reporting frequency. These contractual controls create legal and operational accountability, ensuring that vendors treat information security as an ongoing responsibility rather than a one-time requirement. Vendor onboarding is the next critical stage, where oversight structures move from theory to practice. Each vendor should be classified according to the sensitivity of the data they handle and the systems they access. High-risk vendors undergo enhanced scrutiny and require executive approval before engagement. The onboarding process should include risk, legal, and security reviews, as well as mandatory training for vendors working with sensitive information. Once approved, vendors must be integrated into the organization's broader governance framework, with defined reporting channels and escalation paths. Structured onboarding ensures that risk ownership and expectations are clear from the very beginning of the relationship. Ongoing monitoring and oversight distinguish mature vendor risk programs from reactive ones. Risk management does not end with contract signing. It continues through the entire vendor lifecycle. Continuous performance tracking, regular security assessments, and updates to compliance documentation maintain visibility into evolving risks. Automated tools can monitor external threat indicators, such as dark web activity or vulnerabilities in vendor networks. Periodic reassessments ensure that classification levels remain appropriate as vendor roles or technologies change. This continuous oversight transforms vendor risk management into a living process, ensuring alignment with both regulatory requirements and organizational risk tolerance. Incident management within the third-party ecosystem requires close coordination and clear communication. Vendors must have predefined obligations for reporting breaches or security incidents, including timelines and contact procedures. Shared playbooks enable joint incident response, aligning vendor actions with the organization's broader response and notification plans. Collaboration between legal, compliance, and security teams ensures that regulatory reporting obligations, such as GDPR or sector-specific disclosure requirements, are met on time. Escalation protocols define when executives and customers must be informed. Well-structured third-party incident management reduces confusion during crises and prevents reputational damage through timely, transparent response. Fourth-party and nth-party risks add another layer of complexity. Many vendors rely on subcontractors or other service providers, creating extended chains of dependency that fall outside direct organizational oversight. These downstream relationships often introduce vulnerabilities that are invisible to the contracting organization. Due diligence processes must therefore include disclosure of subcontractors, requiring transparency throughout the supply chain. Contracts should mandate flow-down clauses that extend security and compliance obligations to all subcontractors. By addressing these indirect relationships, CISOs ensure that accountability flows through every layer of the vendor network. Metrics provide a means of evaluating and improving the effectiveness of vendor risk programs. Key performance indicators may include the percentage of critical vendors with completed assessments, the number of audit findings linked to third-party gaps, and the frequency or severity of vendor-related incidents. Additional metrics such as remediation timeframes and compliance verification rates measure responsiveness and maturity. Executive dashboards aggregate this data, offering leadership clear visibility into vendor risk posture. Metrics not only track performance, but also communicate progress, demonstrating to boards and regulators that oversight is structured, measurable, and continuously improving. Vendor offboarding marks the formal conclusion of a third-party relationship, but carries as much risk as onboarding. Access rights must be revoked promptly to prevent unauthorized use of systems or data. Organizations should verify that all data is returned or securely destroyed, with documentation serving as audit evidence. A post-termination review evaluates vendor performance and identifies lessons learned for future engagements. Proper offboarding also ensures that residual risks, such as lingering credentials or uncollected devices, are eliminated. Treating offboarding with the same rigor as onboarding protects the organization from lingering vulnerabilities and compliance exposure. Regulatory expectations for vendor oversight continue to expand, emphasizing the importance of supply chain accountability. Financial regulators such as the Federal Reserve and the European Banking Authority require institutions to demonstrate vendor due diligence and continuous monitoring. Healthcare organizations must comply with HIPAA business associate agreements, while GDPR mandates that data controllers ensure processor compliance. Failure to maintain proper oversight can trigger fines, enforcement actions, or reputational harm. Documentation, policies, contracts, risk assessments, and audit reports must be readily available to regulators during reviews. Proactive compliance with these expectations demonstrates both transparency and governance maturity. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Managing a global supply chain introduces unique challenges that extend far beyond traditional vendor oversight. International suppliers operate under varying legal, cultural, and regulatory conditions that can affect data protection standards and business continuity. Cross-border data transfers require safeguards such as encryption, contractual clauses, and compliance with frameworks like the GDPR standard contractual clauses or adequacy decisions. Political instability, trade restrictions, or regional conflicts can disrupt vendor operations and complicate oversight. A harmonized global vendor management program establishes consistent expectations across all jurisdictions while allowing flexibility for local laws. This global coherence ensures that enterprise security posture remains unified even when operations span diverse regions and legal landscapes. Tools and frameworks have become indispensable in managing vendor ecosystems efficiently. Governance, risk, and compliance (GRC) platforms automate critical components of third-party risk management, streamlining assessments, tracking remediation, and consolidating documentation. Shared assessment programs such as the Standardized Information Gathering (SIG) questionnaire or industry consortiums reduce vendor fatigue by aligning evaluation requirements across clients. Standards like NIST SP 800-161 for supply chain risk management and ISO 27036 for supplier relationships provide structured guidance. When technology and frameworks are combined, organizations achieve scalable oversight that balances depth with efficiency, enabling continuous governance across thousands of vendor relationships. Challenges persist, however, in achieving comprehensive visibility across large vendor networks. Many organizations struggle to track subcontractors or fourth parties hidden within complex service chains. Vendors may resist sharing detailed security information, citing confidentiality or contractual limitations. Monitoring an expansive ecosystem consumes time and resources, particularly when oversight requires coordination across multiple departments and geographies. Balancing business agility with due diligence can also create tension, as rapid procurement processes sometimes bypass rigorous assessments. To overcome these challenges, organizations must embed vendor risk management into procurement workflows, ensuring that efficiency does not compromise governance or accountability. Best practices for effective vendor oversight center on structure, transparency, and collaboration. A risk-based vendor classification framework ensures that critical partners, those handling sensitive data or providing essential services, receive heightened scrutiny. Maintaining an up-to-date inventory of all vendors categorized by risk level and service type provides clarity and focus. Oversight should be layered. Contractual safeguards, periodic audits, and real-time monitoring each contribute to resilience. Collaboration between the organization and its vendors fosters shared responsibility rather than adversarial oversight. When vendors view compliance as a partnership goal rather than a burden, overall supply chain security maturity improves. Executives play a pivotal role in driving the success of vendor risk management programs. Boards and CISOs must set the tone by defining clear expectations for third-party oversight and allocating appropriate budgets and resources. Regular reporting to leadership ensures visibility into vendor performance, incident trends, and emerging risks. Executive engagement also reinforces accountability, sending a message across the enterprise that vendor governance is not an administrative task but a strategic imperative. When leadership demonstrates active involvement, vendor management programs gain authority, direction, and sustained momentum, qualities essential to maintaining trust with customers and regulators alike. The metrics used to measure vendor risk program maturity also serve as tools for executive communication. Dashboards displaying vendor classification, assessment completion rates, and incident frequency make risk visible at a glance. Comparative analytics identify systemic issues such as recurring non-compliance across similar vendors, guiding targeted improvement initiatives. Metrics tied to remediation timelines and residual risk levels help boards evaluate whether investments in vendor management are delivering measurable outcomes. These insights transform oversight from reactive monitoring into predictive governance, empowering executives to anticipate challenges and allocate resources proactively. Vendor oversight increasingly intersects with global compliance expectations. Regulators across financial, healthcare, and technology sectors now require organizations to demonstrate accountability for their third-party ecosystems. Frameworks such as the EU's Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA, and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's Cybersecurity Disclosure Rules highlight supply chain accountability as a board-level issue. This convergence of regulation and governance signals a new era where supply chain integrity is treated as an extension of enterprise risk management. Organizations that adopt proactive, documented oversight not only meet compliance expectations, but also position themselves as industry leaders in responsible business conduct. Technology continues to reshape how vendor risk programs operate. Artificial intelligence and machine learning now enhance due diligence by analyzing patterns in vendor data, threat intelligence, and performance metrics. Predictive analytics can identify early indicators of risk, such as deteriorating financial stability or increased vulnerability exposure, before incidents occur. Blockchain technologies show promise for secure, verifiable evidence sharing across supply chains, improving trust without compromising confidentiality. As digital ecosystems grow more interconnected, the future of vendor management lies in predictive, automated systems that offer real-time assurance of compliance and resilience. Cultural alignment is another vital yet often overlooked factor in vendor management success. Vendors must not only comply with technical standards, but also embody the organization's values around security, privacy, and ethics. Integrating cultural expectations into contracts, onboarding, and performance reviews ensures consistent behavior across the supply chain. This approach moves vendor governance beyond compliance checklists, building relationships rooted in shared principles. Over time, these partnerships yield greater transparency, mutual learning, and innovation in risk management practices, turning security collaboration into a competitive differentiator. Mature vendor risk management programs also integrate lessons learned from incidents and audits into continuous improvement cycles. Every third-party breach or compliance gap provides insights that should feed back into risk scoring models, due diligence processes, and contractual templates. Annual program reviews assess effectiveness, benchmark against peers, and adjust strategies to reflect regulatory changes and emerging threats. Continuous improvement transforms vendor oversight from a reactive necessity into a proactive leadership function. It reflects an organization's capacity to adapt, evolve, and maintain trust in an increasingly complex global supply chain environment. The ultimate success of vendor risk management depends on its integration with enterprise governance. When third-party oversight is embedded into procurement, risk management, and board reporting processes, it ceases to function as an isolated compliance task. Instead, it becomes a critical component of the organization's overall resilience strategy. Alignment with broader enterprise risk frameworks ensures that vendor oversight contributes directly to strategic decision-making. As CISOs and executives refine these integrations, they build not only secure supply chains, but also stronger, more transparent ecosystems of trust. In conclusion, third-party and vendor risk management represents the front line of modern cybersecurity defense. By combining due diligence, contractual controls, continuous monitoring, and executive oversight, organizations protect themselves from the growing complexity of supply chain threats. Effective governance extends beyond direct vendors to include subcontractors, global partners, and digital service providers. Through automation, collaboration, and sustained leadership engagement, vendor risk management evolves from compliance obligation to strategic advantage, preserving trust, ensuring resilience, and reinforcing the integrity of interconnected enterprises in a global digital economy.